So this is a DTV Shredder 200cc side shaft engine. Now I know this looks like a standard Predator or Honda clone, but it is in fact the most advanced little engine on the market right now. They are selling these engines as a standalone unit. They are a little pricey, but they pack so much technology. It's going to be pretty awesome, and we're excited to see how it performs on that mini bike. Now what we're going to be doing is going over this engine, showing all the technology it packs in it, and then also opening up the side cover, showing you that oil system, and we're going to swap out the crankshaft. So we'll have to pull the flywheel and all that stuff off. But the reason we're swapping out the crankshaft is it's only keyed halfway down. That's the way Shredder needed it, and that's going to be a problem for us because for a torque converter we need it keyed all the way to the end. So they sent us another crankshaft, and we actually threw it on the mill and we keyed it all the way to the end. So we have a crankshaft to swap out in it. Now this is a standard Honda GX200 style crankshaft, but the only difference is they've welded up this hole that's normally there to allow oil to get where it needs to go. And then they basically, on the side cover side, they bored a hole into the crankshaft, and this is basically feeds oil through here and pushes it out that hole, making it have a pressurized oil system. And the oil system is ran off the camshaft gearing on the crankshaft. So it's a pretty crazy little engine. So on the engine we have a head temperature sensor, and this head is a lot different than your standard GX200 head as well. It has more copper in the mixture, so it dissipates heat a lot better than a standard head. It also has way more meat around the exhaust and the intake side, the ports. So you can bore it out to your liking. You can get a lot of bore out of it and get a lot of flow out of this head. Now it is a non-Hemi style head, but non-Hemi style heads still perform really well. It isn't like a Hemi is going to get you crazy more horsepower. You can actually do more with a non-Hemi than you can a Hemi. You can see the side cover is a little different. It's got a rounded shape where a standard Predator has more of a slant. So unfortunately this side cover, you can't just pull it off and put it on a Predator and have an oil pump system. If this side cover would fit a Predator, you'd basically need the crankshaft, the rod, and the side cover to complete the whole oil system setup. And you'll see that once we get inside, because the billet rod does not have an oil dipper on it, because this is a pressure lubricated engine. Now I've placed a top plate from Go Power Sports on this engine, but you can see we have our voltage regulator right here, and then we have our Delorto ECU. So this basically has two air sensors that I've mounted on the top plate as well. And then it has a carburetor that's a lot like a 22mm Mikuni, but it has a throttle position sensor, and it has extra ports to run these sensors that feed information to the ECU so it can properly tune the engine. It has a rev limiter of 5,800 RPMs out of the box, and it can retard and advance time it as it needs to. So it's pretty crazy how they've done this engine up. We have the full wiring harness, and we'll be putting this on our Monster Moto, so watch out on the channel for that build to get finished up and see how this engine performs. It's supposed to be around 15 horsepower, and that's just how much they had to regulate it for the EPA. Of course, we can get more power out of this engine, and we plan on doing a stroker kit and a different cam and some things, so this engine is going to get pretty crazy in the future. What we need to do is pull the valve cover off, and I'm probably going to replace it with a clear valve cover just because I like them. It looks better than these, stamped steel ones. We got to pull the rockers out and the push rods, and then we can pull the side cover and the cam and everything out and get this crankshaft pulled out, so we can start putting this thing on the mini bike. Looks like they've tightened these rockers with Thor's hammer. I'm afraid I'm going to strip them. I had to use an impact on that because I was afraid I was going to strip the nut with a wrench. Let me take this extension off, get some more power down there. There we go. Good gosh. So I might as well go ahead and do some, while this is apart, do some Chromoly push rods, and like I said, either those Champion rockers, because these rockers, just these stock rockers, have a lot of friction, and you can get a lot better, valve train movement out of some Champions or some ratios. Alrighty. Oh gosh. Push rods are out, and they do look maybe like they're a little bit beefier push rod than what you would see in a stock, Predator non-Hemi, but I'm not sure. I'll have to talk with them and see if they've done, they don't look Chromoly or anything, so we'll probably be replacing those. We don't have to mess with the valves any, but it does have a different set of retainers and lash caps that I've ever seen, so that's different. I'm wondering if it has stainless valves in it as well. Now we got to pull off the side cover because we do got to remove the flywheel, so where we can pull that crankshaft out. Shouldn't be that big of a process. So this flywheel is rated for 12,000 RPMs. You can see it's got a cast set of fins on it, and that's different than you usually see on these engines. Next, we're going to go ahead and break the bolt loose. It should be a 19 millimeter, and then we can pull that off and start forcing the flywheel off. There we go. So that's a pretty advanced little flywheel. I've never seen anything like that before. You can see they've welded the starter gear to the flywheel, so it's pretty crazy. You can see the charging system is a lot higher output than a standard Predator. I mean, this thing should put out more than triple the voltage of a Predator. Alright, so let's pull this thing open and see the goodies. So the cam, of course, came out with it. And we'll look up what the duration and the lift of this cam is, but it is a performance cam. You can see that bearing setup is a lot nicer than a standard engine, and there's that oil pump setup. You can see it's driven by the cam. I thought it was driven by the crankshaft, but it's actually cam driven oil system. Seems like the oil pickup is right here, and then it pushes it out through this bearing and on through the crankshaft. We'll go ahead and pull the spark plug so we don't have any compression working against us. So there it is. You can see where it's just been keyed halfway down, and we need it all the way. Same crankshaft, they just sent us an extra one, so we can wrap this one up, put it on the shelf for, you know, some type of future use. Alright, so we have that rod all torqued back down to spec. I torqued it back down to 170 inch-pounds. So now we can throw the lifters back in, slide the cam in, and then slide that side cover on. So we have our lifters. We're going to slide back in there. Now we just need to slide the cam in and line the dots up, and we should be good to go. Now they told me to make sure that the spring doesn't come out of the seal in there when sliding this back on. It does not look like it has, so I think we are good on that. Now the biggest thing is getting that cam gear to line up with that oil pump. I'm just going to turn this slightly until it wants to slide in there. Alright, now we got that side cover torque down, and the side cover torque was 20 foot-pounds instead of the standard 17, just because it has that oil pump system. Now we're going to slide the flywheel on. So we got to torque the flywheel down to 54 foot-pounds. So I always clamp the engine down to my workbench. There we go. Now on torque wrenches, a lot of them don't say this, but you know, you don't want to store them at a really high torque spec. I always put mine down to about 20. Most of them call for 20. Every torque wrench is different. This one didn't come with any specifics, so I'll leave it on 20. That just keeps from wearing out the spring inside there. So now we can set our gap with our 20 thousandths feeler gauge. grab a couple tins. So what I'm going to do is put this in between the magnet and that magneto. I'm trying to hold it with one hand. And torque it down with the other. It should be set at 20 thousandths, a tight 20 thousandths. Now it's pretty much just throw the side cover on. We got to dress out the head again, put all of our rockers on it. All right, now we're going to go ahead and pull out the rocker studs because I'm going to install some better rockers. So the stock rockers are a friction mounted style rocker, and I don't like them. They're just, you lose horsepower to the friction that they cause. You're not necessarily gaining any horsepower by putting like roller rockers. You're just freeing up horsepower that's wasted to friction, if that makes any sense. Now if you go to ratio rockers, of course you're going to get more power because you're going to get more lift out of your cam in your valve train. So I got the 3 different sets of rockers laid out on the table, and we're going to look at them and show you the difference. Okay, so these are the stock style non-Hemi rockers. Now the shredder does come with 1.2 ratio rockers. These are 1.2 ratios, and they're just in the stock style. Now this is a ton of friction in these style rockers. You can see here's the rocker stud that bolts into the head, and the rocker is pivoting right there on top of this nut. So there's a ton of friction. Now you can upgrade to the Champion rockers. Go Power Sports does sell these rockers, and this is a good alternative to the stock style. Now these are not ratio, these are just 1-to-1 rockers, but they pivot on this bolt, so there's hardly any friction in there. You are still getting a little friction right there on the adjuster that sets on the lash cap, but these are still a great upgrade if you're just wanting a cheap upgrade from the stock style rockers. Now you can get the gauge rockers on Go Power Sports as well. This is the best rockers that money can buy for these small engines, in my opinion. They have a bearing right there that will set on top of the lash cap, so there's no friction whatsoever. I mean, they pivot on this bolt, basically this shaft, and then where it meets the valve, the lash cap, you know, that bearing right there will spin. So there's no friction, and these are 1.2 ratio rockers. You can get these in just standard 1-to-1, 1.2s, and 1.3s on Go Power Sports. Now in the shredder engine, we're going to be using the blue set of these, which are the Ultralight. They weigh a little less than these, and should be a really good upgrade over the 1.2 stock style ratio rockers this engine had in it. So all we have to do is remove the rocker studs out of the block, and we can put some Loctite on these bolts and bolt them in, and have you know, up to 1 horsepower gain just from losing that friction. Those puppies are in there quite a bit. I'm almost scared I'm gonna son of a we're gonna pull the head, and then I'm gonna pull the valves out, pull the spark plug, pull the carb and everything. Oh, spark plug's already loose. But basically pull the head off, get everything out of the head, and then I'm gonna weld to that broken stud until I get weld outside of the head, and then put a nut on it, weld it, and hopefully that heat will break that red Loctite. The reason Shredder uses red Loctite is because this is a vehicle that the engine's extremely hard to get to, so they red Loctite everything just to know stuff over time. In about 100 hours, they said stuff starts vibrating loose. I mean, no matter how you torque it. So I don't use red Loctite, but I understand them using it. So let's get these 12mm head bolts out and pull the carb and all that junk. Ugh. Alright, now I'm going to weld to that stud, and of course it's aluminum head, so the weld isn't going to stick to the head, and I can get weld to stick to that stud and then let it get out past that little lip there, and then just set down a nut on top of it and weld it, or I may set a nut first and just fill it up. But unfortunate to have to do this, and I am going to cover up the valve guides. I don't want those to get any, so I'll stick any spatter on them, so I'm going to stick a leather glove in there. And then we can clean this puppy back up and slap it back in there. I want to cover my valve guides like so, maybe. Should work out. Just keeping spatter off of them. Everything else aluminum, so everything should be good. Oh my goodness. So now, I can weld that. Do you think it'll work, Braxton?
Maybe.
Cool. Alright, should I try the impact, Braxton?
Yeah.
Hey, I like the way you think. Hey, cuz, I like the way you thinking with your thinking thing. Alright. Awesome. Didn't work. Woo! Next try.
Did it just break the nut off?
Yes, Braxton. Way to shove it in my face. That bolt didn't like the whole weld. Try number 2.
Look what you did to the glove.
Don't care about those cheap gloves. It doesn't want to, the weld does not want to stick to it. That had more heat, therefore maybe more transfer. Ah. Pull my hair. Take 6. Do you think this will work?
No.
Okay.
My hypothesis is if you weld the nut to the thing, then it will not work.
Hey.
My conclusion is it did not work.
Are you saying it won't work? We'll keep trying.
What's keeping it in there? The Loctite?
Alright, I'm gonna let this one fully cool down. Then we'll try. How about that? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Sound good? Cool.
If you need an artist, hit your boy Grayson up. Well, he got you. If that nut breaks off, you're gonna go flying into that.
I tell you, this is aggravating. So I tried it once more. And guess what? Your boy got it. Ah! Got it. Who wants to buy a custom rocker stud bolt? I just had to really get some heat on that area. So now I'm going to clean up the head and make sure there's no little pieces of spatter. Take some brake clean to it, clean up everything. I was covering the valve guides, by the way, when I was just welding. So no, that was the only thing still left in the head. So that is nice. And am I going to Loctite them back in there? Yes, but I'm going to use blue Loctite. Okay. Alright, so on this engine I'm going to use the Go Power Sports head studs instead of bolts. I can red Loctite the studs into the head and then just put the nuts on. So there is the packaging for them. You get 4 washers, 4 nuts, and 4 studs. So I'm going to go ahead and install those with some red Loctite into the block. And get them all tightened down. Then we can put our valves back in our head. So now I got my washers and nuts that come with the stud kit, and now I'm just gonna ease the torque up, and the shredder engine uses a little higher torque on the head. So I'm just gonna go little bits at a time. At 17, that's what a stock head gets. Alright, instead of the black ones, we're going to go with the Ultralight gauge rockers from GoPowersports.com. The links to any parts used on this is in the description. And if you're running a GoPowersports clear valve cover, you do not have to run the spacer. You only need the spacer with ratio rockers if you're running the stock valve cover. So this will give us plenty of clearance, and we'll be able to swee those sweet rockers. So I'm going to put a little bit of blue Loctite on these, and then slap those fat daddies in there. There's no torque spec on these, so I'm just going to, you know, hammer foot them in there. The roller end, of course, goes on the valve. Make sure you're at top dead center when doing this. Alright, so I adjusted the valves to 5 thousandths. That's what they call for on the shredder. It's got a really nice snug fit between the two, and I'm going to dab a little bit of oil on these rockers. I don't like how there's that little bit of play, but there's nothing I can do about that. It's just the way it is. But then we can slap on this clear valve cover. Look at that. That's going to look sick. So we can slap that all together and dust this puppy so we can see those beautiful gauge rockers. Alright fellas, so the engine's ready to go on the mini bike. If you watched the last episode, she's all ready. We still have to mount the battery box. We're going to use a GoPowersports aluminum 3-inch gas tank. It's, I think, 10 inches long, 3 inches wide for now, until we make some type of custom gas tank. But the shredder engine is ready to go. We just, like I said, have to do the battery box, mount the oil cooler and the oil filter, and finish up the wiring, and then she'll be ready to rip. I'm really excited to see how this chassis handles it. Now, some people was saying, am I going to brace that rear rack a little bit because it is taking all the rear suspension? Yes. Basically, I'm going to take some 1-inch tubing and get it rolled. I do not have a roller. We're buying a roller very soon. We have a bender, but I don't have a roller. And roller will basically put, you know, a roll to some tubing. I'm going to roll some 1-inch tubing and weld in there to give it an extra little brace. You'll see in a later video, but at first we're going to ride it like it is. If it breaks and we die, you know, so be it. But I'll show you the engine. We put red cup washers on it, and we got those blue gauge rockers in there, and it's starting to look pretty sick. Oh man, does that look good. Now, I know people wants to know, there's going to be some people want to know how to install these gauge rockers. We're going to have a video come out very soon on just how to install gauge rockers. You know, if you bought an engine right out of the box, how to put gauge rockers on it. We also have how to do cut to length push rods, chromoly push rods coming up. We got a bunch of stuff, how to install a billet flywheel, billet rod, all those standalone videos. But we did red cup washers. I left the original side cover color and the recoil start silver. I think it's going to match the bike really good. So yeah, there she is. Man, does it look awesome. It did suck that that stud broke, you know, but I didn't know red Loctite was on it. I was using a ratchet to see if I could break it loose, and she snapped. Oh well. So we'll get this thing finished up in the next video and hopefully ride it. Make sure, guys, if you are interested in these gauge ratio rockers or the Champion rockers, to check out the links. And the top plate we use on this engine, the clear valve cover, all those links for Go Power Sports are in the description of the video. And you can use a discount code on the clear valve cover, but racing parts, my discount code does not cover, so you're not going to get 10% off. But still use it if you're buying racing parts, because it shows Go Power Sports that my videos is working, and you know, I can feed my family. They do help out a ton using those links. But stay tuned. I hope everybody had a great Christmas and a happy New Year. But stay tuned to see this bike running. I'm really excited to put this thing through the test, and we're also going to take this bike and Lonnie's bike and do a little showdown, see which one performs better. Lonnie's engine should be around the 15-16 horsepower mark, probably. You know, I'm just guessing. I've never dynoed an engine, so this is all guesstimates. But yeah, make sure to check out those links. Get you some gauge ratio rockers. They're freaking sick. And we'll see you on the next one, guys. We love you with all of our hearts, and God bless you. Redbeard's Garage is powered by GoPowersports.com. Go Power Sports has a huge amount of awesome go-kart and mini bike parts, and when making your purchase, use the Redbeard discount code in the upper right-hand corner of your shopping cart to grab yourself a sweet deal. Hit that subscribe button and make sure the notification bell is on so you'll never miss another episode, and go check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Pinterest to stay up to date with the channel. Guys, always come back to Redbeard's Garage. I'm out.